We are going to make this a series. We, meaning me, every week I'm going to be talking about something related to training here for a little bit, because it is, again, something that is really coming in hot on my Instagram with people asking questions, and naturally so. I mean, I am sharing a lot of workout content over there, and so it makes sense that people are like, oh my God, help me. I mean, I'm having men in my DMs, and like, I'm patient. I'm like hoping they don't have ulterior motives. And so far they've been very respectful. Okay. The second they aren't, you be knowing. I'd be like, I boot them out of my DMs and I block them.
Let's take a step back. For those of you that are new here, my name is Diane Flores. I've been in the health and fitness space for over 17 years. I'm an IFBB bodybuilding pro, which also makes me a professional dieter. And I'm a personal trainer, I'm a health coach, and I have been tracking macros and calories for a very long time. I've been 200 pounds. I have professionally dieted my whole professional bodybuilding life. I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've been shredded, I have been obsessive, I've hated my body, I now love my body. I've had unhealthy eating behaviors and everything in between.
Okay, so today is going to be talking a lot about one of the main problems we see, which is women who feel stuck and they feel like, they have no real direction once they get in the gym. They're just like, I go in and I don't know, if I'm doing things right, if I'm using the right sets and reps and all that fun stuff. In fact, I have my notes here. I did get 3 questions. So I posed this question, obviously, in the Boss Bitch Besties Facebook page, that group. I said, hey, this is what we're talking about. And once I set up the event, it opens up a little chat box, which I don't know if you're aware of this. If you're on Facebook, if you sign up for an event, the event has a little private chat, which is awesome because I can go in there and I can ask further questions. And some of the questions that came through were in relation to this topic. So we're going to dive into that. The first one was, let me get my blush brush. The first one was from Lynette and was knowing what muscles to work out and if I should increase the weight or the reps. The second question, and bear with me because this all ties into one solution, okay, is Khadijah asked, how many sets do I need to do to see progress? And then Myra asked, knowing what to do to target what I want, specifically the rib area under the armpit, which is, I'm assuming this like, what people call back fat. So those 3 key things are all going to tie into one answer-ish, okay? And I say ish because there are some variables, and I know people hate that, but it is the truth, right? The problem, and this is the topic for today, is you have to know why the hell you're going in the gym. That makes a huge difference. The answer to those questions is going to depend on that answer. So if you're feeling stuck and you have no direction, you're going in there, you're like, I don't know what muscles to work out. What do I do for this? What do I do for that? Right? You got to know what the bigger picture is. Like, what's the bigger overall goal? Is it to get strong? Are you in a fat loss phase? The training is going to look a little bit different in terms of how you execute it, some of the things you can do. Overall, when you walk into the gym, you need to know why you're there. Okay. It's like if you know you got to go to the grocery store and you just walk in, but you're just like, I don't know. I didn't check the pantry. I don't know what's in the fridge. I have no idea if the kids ate all the cereal. You're just going in blind and you're just, I'm just going to throw a bunch of shit in the cart. That's kind of what people do at the gym. No, that's not kind of. That's a lot of what people do at the gym. And I get it. If you're just going in and you're like, hey, I'm here, and that to me is a win. And I'm just trying to get some movement in and, be healthy or whatever. I still feel like that needs some direction, but it's definitely, it's definitely better than doing nothing, but going in and knowing what the hell you're doing. Okay, so let me tell you a quick story. Once upon a time, I would walk into the gym and I would just get on a treadmill, right? I would get on a treadmill. I wouldn't touch the elliptical because I didn't really know how to use it back then. This was I don't know, when I was working at Gold's Gym. 20 years ago, maybe. God, that sounds really, really long ago. That's a long time ago, friends. I would walk in and I would just jump on a treadmill, or I would, this was a classic one that I would do. I would wander around the weight room, like the outskirts. There was like this like walkway that was like right on the outside of all the machines, and the machines were on one side and the cardio pieces were on the other. And so I would just walk through that little like pathway, and I'd be like, is today the day I'm gonna be brave and I'm gonna go on the weight machines? And sometimes it would be, sometimes it wouldn't be. And I would stick to the same like machines that I was very comfortable with, which would typically be a lat pull down, a leg press, something like that. And then eventually at some point in that journey, I had stumbled upon, and I know I've told this story many times, so if you've heard this, bear with me. I stumbled upon the Oxygen magazine. So if you're in your mid 40s and you've remotely been into fitness, you probably remember that magazine. And I would rip out, whatever workouts were in there, and I would start to take them with me to the gym. Okay. Better than what I was doing before, which was just kind of hoping a machine would be free and there wasn't a lot of boys in there and I wouldn't feel intimidated and I would actually do it. Much better, right? So I would rip those out and I would take them in there. Now, every month I'd do that. Every month there'd be a new publication, a new magazine. Who reads magazines anymore? There'd be a new magazine. I'd rip it out. In the back, there would be workouts from competitors a lot of times. They would put the competitors in the back of the magazine. And this is what spawned my interest in training and bodybuilding and competing, is I'd see these women, I'd be like, wow, what are they doing? Right? And I would take them and I would just do them. And then one day I realized I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I'm going in there and I'm lifting, but again, like a lot of the questions that come in, like how many sets do I need to be doing? I would just do what was on the paper, right? And I was like, okay, I got to get a little bit further in this journey because the magazines will only take me so far. And back then, in pure Diane ADD fashion, I would still be like, I'd do the workout for a week or two, and I'd be like, I need to change this up, right? I need a new workout. And I'd get bored and I'd be waiting for the next magazine to come out to switch it up, or I would just go back to doing cardio. So at some point after I had my third child, I got back in the gym and kind of got back to that same routine. And I had gotten like some decent results up until that point, because at one point I was in the gym. I just had Tyson, and he's my youngest son. And then one of the managers there at the gym came up to me and he's like, hey, are you a trainer? And I said, no. And that was my dream. Okay. This is like so funny to me now because look at what the hell I'm doing. But I was like, no. And so he asked me, do you want to be a trainer? And I was like, yes. I was working from home at the time and I was able to have a little bit more flexibility. So I started as a personal trainer. Tyson was like, I don't even know. He's like an infant carrier. So I started working there and I quickly realized I did not like it because they were so focused on sales and less about actually training trainers, which is a story for another, time. But at that point, when I became a trainer, I was like, I need to understand the value of training. And my sister and I actually paid for like a boot camp, right? And it was a smaller boot camp. And I was just like, I need something. It was what I could afford at the time. And I invested in that, right? And then I started realizing, it's so important to have a goal, because when I sat with this trainer, we sat with them, they, talked to us about like our body fat and all that fun stuff. And we went through all of the little details that a lot of trainers will have you go through when you start like a diet plan and stuff. And I realized, okay, I have just been throwing spaghetti at the wall, because this was an actual like program, right? It was a boot camp program, but nonetheless, there was like a little bit of like a dumbbell-y type weight training component to it. And I think there was only 5 or 6 of us. It was very, very small. And then, I realized like after educating myself that this is a thing. You got to know what you're doing when you go in there if you want to see a specific result. So with that, It's super important when you have a goal, you understand why it is you're walking in there. Now, when it comes to some of the questions that came through, let me give you some examples. With Lynette saying, like, I need to know what muscles to work out, and should I increase the weight or should I increase the reps? What do you want your body to look like? That might not be how a lot of trainers help you set your goals, but you have to understand when women come to us, a lot of times there are some sub goals like, oh, I just want more energy and I want to feel stronger. But 9 times out of 10, they're like, I want flat abs, or I want to get rid of my muffin top, or I want, to build strong legs. So knowing what your ultimate vision is super important. And it's not that hard, right? It's not that hard. I want you to just think about if you were to wave, and what I mean by that is if you were to wave a magic wand and bibbity bobbity boo, I could give you, whatever body shape that you think is just like absolutely amazing, right? That's where we start, right? Like, what is your vision for your end physique, or like the physique that you're trying to sculpt? The things that are reality is that while we might not be able to get you to look like J-Lo or Beyonce or any of those things, right? Like your celebrity girl crushes, we could get pretty damn close. And the things that are going to get in the way are obviously things like genetics, right? Like genetically, where do you carry your body fat? Have you overdeveloped some body parts over the years with like certain sports or activities or things like that? But when you work with a coach one-on-one, which you don't have to, but when you do, we can help you do that, right? That's what bodybuilding is. And all of my coaches and all of my trainers have been on stage. And while that's intimidating sometimes to the GP, right? Like the general public, what you have to understand is they've all started from ground zero. So they understand that this isn't something that shouldn't be followed until you lose weight or whatever. It doesn't matter if you're 300 pounds or if you're 100 pounds, we're going to give you a lot of the same types of exercises. They're just going to look a little bit different in like execution and maybe how many sets and how many reps and things of that nature, because we're building muscle in those specific body parts. And it's going to start with the same foundations, right? I'm not going to have somebody who's 300 pounds, 250 pounds. Let's have you do a bunch of cardio first. Let's have you join a boot camp class and just get lost in the sauce amongst 18 other people and let you lose some fat first, and then we'll put you in the gym. That is the craziest shit I have ever heard. Craziest, right? It's the worst, actually, because a lot of times those people come to us because they end up getting injured. They maybe lost a few pounds, but it's not something that they can sustain because it's harder on their body. Things like that. I know I'm getting a little squirrely here. You shouldn't be surprised, but all that to say, when you start training or you start getting into the gym, it's incredibly helpful for you to know what the hell you want to achieve. So if you're meandering around and you just don't know, it's the whole grocery store scenario. You walk in, you don't really know what the hell you have at home. So I'm just going to put a little bit of everything in there. And hopefully I don't already have, 3 bags of rice at home, just like waiting for me. And I forgot, right? So knowing that is super key. One of the other questions that came in was, and again, to my point, was Khadija asked, how many sets do I need to do to see progress, right? There are some standards for this. However, with that, it depends. And the reason why it depends is it depends on where you're at when you start. So let me give you a little example. If you take myself, who's been training for the better part of the last 20 years and then some, who is probably at their genetic potential. And what I mean by that is like, I've got a decent amount of muscle on my body from lifting for so many years and being in bodybuilding and everything, right? For me, this question or the answer to this question is going to look very, very different for me than it is for somebody who is maybe 6 months into their journey, right? Because for me, I might need to do a few more sets because my body has been through many, many rounds of different programs. And I use the same exercises quite frequently. Like I've been doing leg press for 20 years. And so for me, I might need a few more sets, or I might need a few more reps, or doing some different rep schemes and styles of training. Maybe I'm doing paused sets, or I'm doing tempo, which is actually what I'm doing right now, tempoed sets and things like that. So it's really hard to get specific with these types of questions. So that's why I stress the importance of follow a program, right? Follow a program. If it's not our program, then find a program and don't just do it for 2 weeks and give up. Like, do it and try to progress within that as best as you can every week for where you're at. So if you start something and let's say, you're doing an exercise, it's like 4 sets of 12 reps for, let's just say, biceps. And over time, like that might feel like a lot of volume. That might feel like a lot of load. For me, that could be like a walk in the park. And I would probably only do something like that for my biceps, maybe once or twice a month. Okay. So for me, that's going to look different. I'm not going to want biceps. Like I'm good, right? Like my biceps are bigger than my dad's. Like I'm not going to want to do that. So it just depends. I could probably get away with 2 sets a month just to maintain that. Or because I do back once or twice a month, that's also going to hit my biceps. So this is just to give you an idea of why sometimes it's hard to answer these questions super specifically, because it would be impossible for me to give like a blanket statement, because it just really depends on where you're coming in on your weight training journey. The last thing I'm going to say, and the last question that came through, is when Myra asks, knowing what to do and to target what I want, specifically the rib area under the armpit. So one thing I do want to say before I sign off that's super important, if you have not heard this before, you're not aware of this just yet, is that there's really no thing as spot reducing. If you're like, I hate this area right here, this back fat area, whatever, I want to get rid of that. The exercise that you have to do to get rid of that is to exercise portion control and your diet. And, that's how that's how you're going to spot reduce fat, is you got to focus on the nutrition piece of things, because your training isn't going to eliminate that. Now, you can build muscle in that area, right? And like, I hate to use the word like tone, but you can build muscle, but you're never going to really see that spot improve dramatically until you actually drop some body fat around that muscle area. And the only way to do that is through your diet, right? I don't know who saw, let me know in the comments, who saw my Instagram little ranty rant from the Denise Austin magazine. It's her magazine. I ended up figuring out it's not like a normal publication. Like she just has her own magazine, which kudos to her. I'm not hating on her. I'm just hating on the fact that on the cover of that magazine, it's for women over 50. It's targeted for women over 50, which is, part of my demographic. It says exercise routine to blast fat. And I instantly went like this. Why are we still telling people that that's a thing? Like I'm feeling myself getting feisty. Bear with me. I'm getting hot. I'm sweating because Denise Austin be making me mad with that shit. That is not a thing. Melting fat with your training program is not a fucking thing. Okay. If that was a thing, more of us would be shredded. Okay. Let me just tell you, because people will just keep going to the gym and thinking that solves their problem. And then they can just eat whatever the hell they want. That's not how this works. So all that to kind of say with this particular question, there's no exercise that's going to melt the fat under your armpit area or your back or your belly or your thighs or any of that. What you can do is start and stick to, as best as you can, consistently a solid weight training program that targets the areas that you want to improve, or maybe you want to grow your glutes, or, you know, strengthen your legs, sculpt your arms, whatever the case may be. That is going to be the foundation. Okay. And then the layer above that is, in order to see the foundation of what you're creating, is getting your nutrition in check, which is for a whole nother topic and podcast. And I discussed exhaustively in a lot of podcast topics. So just know that I really want to stand on my soapbox and make sure that you guys are not being bamboozled by marketing and media and thinking, oh, well, this magazine says this workout blasts fat. And then you go do Denise Austin's workout with I'm talking shit. Okay. Just bear with me. I promise I'm not a mean girl, but that made me mad. Is I'm watching her little workout program and she's like, sculpt our arms. These are her dumbbells. Okay. Right here. This just pretend dumbbells, but she has two little pink dumbbells and she's like doing these like things. And I'm like, bitch, I know your purse is heavier than those 2-pound dumbbells. What the F are you actually doing, Denise Austin? Trying to tell women that this with 2-pound dumbbells, when their purses weigh like 20 pounds, blows my mind. Just absolutely blows my mind. So I'm being a little bit of a dick here, but that's why you guys love me. So thanks for hanging out. I would love it if you would share this information or share the Facebook group with a friend. Somehow, some way, we ask you to share because that's how we are able to kind of connect with more people and help and serve and spread the message of strength training, because it's still not a huge part of the female population that is walking into the gym and weight training and doing all the things. So I want to get you off of social media and saving programs and saving workouts, but actually never doing them, and actually putting rubber to the road and getting your ass into the gym and doing some shit.